All right, Thor, let's bolt our way through this one.
The God of Lightning rounds!
Which means we are going to be hitting the remaining films that we have left and just trying to knock them out, because we got a bunch of titles left, and we're just not going to go into these as much as in depth. It's nothing against these titles per se, or at least some of them. It's just that's the way the cookie ended up crumbling.
By Milnor's might.
So we're going to start this off with another one that I know, I don't know how you felt about this, but I know Brian and I disagreed about the Ides of March. And I can't remember, we already argued about this on some other podcast.
I think we argued about it when it was pointed out to me during our Oscar show that I have no taste whatsoever.
Oh, that's right, you don't.
Yeah.
No.
Clooney, well, when it was pointed out to me that Clooney this year did absolutely nothing for me, and everybody thought I was completely insane for that.
That's right, it was the Oscar show. Well, anyway, I apologize if we hurt your feelings.
No, dude, I don't have taste. Like, I'm
I thought you were going to say feelings.
No.
I
No,
don't
he's got
have
feelings.
All right, so
He just also happens to be right.
so you
kind of sucked ass this year.
So you didn't like him. I'm on the other side. I think this is one of Clooney's best years, but that's neither here nor there, and sheerly a matter of opinion. This film is Clooney's his latest directorial effort. It's also written by Clooney. It's an adaptation of a play called Farragut North with Ryan Gosling, Clooney, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Paul Giamatti, Marissa Tomei, Jeffrey Wright, and Evan Rachel Wood.
Amazing cast. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And basically, Ryan Gosling is the deputy campaign manager for George Clooney, who's the governor of Pennsylvania and a Democratic presidential candidate who's running against Arkansas Senator Ted Pullman, played by Michael Mantell. It's looking really, really good for George Clooney's character anyway, but it starts to get complicated when it turns out that Clooney had an affair with an intern, as is known as is wont to happen in these situations.
In politics? Shenanigans.
Things get even more complicated from there because Ryan Gosling is in fact dating her when he discovers this. It shakes up his whole view of the political system and idealism. And that's ultimately what I liked about this film, was that even though Clooney, an avowed Democrat, this film kind of feels like just about being disenchanted with the whole process regardless of who, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I don't know if we can trust anybody anymore. It's more about the glamour than it is and what you can get out of it than it is about like actually meaning or standing up for what you believe in anymore.
And I think that's the biggest problem with it, is that it comes down to, hey, guess what? Politics are corrupt, and I think Brian and I were both left going, yeah, so?
Well, maybe I can see that's a viewpoint if you've reached that level of cynicism, which I certainly have as well. No, I mean, I can understand.
I don't think that's cynicism. That's just saying, like, you're making a point that we all figured out years ago.
But you say we all, but that's obviously not true. I mean, look at what happened in the Obama campaign, where people honestly 100% believed in the change and hope thing. I mean, it fulfilled them on a personal level, believing that was going to happen exactly as it was spelled out.
But why do you think so many people rallied behind that? Because it had been decades since we'd had anything to root for in politics. Well, I think that
whatever, Clinton was awesome.
Well, no. I'm not saying Clinton wasn't awesome. I'm saying since that there was a candidate who, for a large part of the population, actually had the reason that the word hope comes up in his campaign so much is because we were feeling pretty hopeless before then. So yeah. I don't feel like it was anything new to anyone that there's corruption in politics. I think it's like the rule now. It's just the accepted fact, you know?
And I do agree with you, but I mean, I'm right where you are.
The point you're making is that you feel like some people...
I feel like a lot of people still
had the wool pulled over their eyes or thought that Obama was the exception to that rule. That's neither here nor there as far as the lightning round for Ides of March is concerned.
Yeah, I don't think it's just Obama supporters. I think there's a lot of that going on. There's always fervent believers out there of just normal everyday folk, not just the people who are on the campaign trail. I mean, there always are. People are like, no, he's my candidate, of whoever it might be. And look, they're all kind of fucked up.
I guess my point is that corruption in politics is not a revolutionary thing, and I don't feel like it was explored with any new perspective. And
it really wasn't. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention that Paul Giamatti and Philip Seymour Hoffman are both fantastic in this film. Yeah. As they almost always are, but they both have, like, their one monologue where they're both with Ryan Gosling's character, who really spends the whole movie with one expression on his face and reacting to nothing that happens.
Yeah,
But
his performance is very stilted in this movie.
But regardless, whether you liked it like Cyrus did or whether you didn't particularly care for it, we can all agree that those two monologues are fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
And
that was
almost worth seeing the film for.
the highlight
just
of the
for
film right
those.
there. We can
Yeah.
agree on that, that's for sure. All right, so
that was Ides of
Ides of March. Moving on, with the Criterion edition for this episode is Belle de Jour.
And this is going to be the theme of the lightning round, which is that French people are horny and crazy.
They like it the sex.
They're like to say, why are we Italian talking about the French?
Because why the fuck not?
Maybe he's Italian living in France.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that going on.
The Renaissance
They're
took
just
place
crazy.
in Italy.
Italians are like, wow, there's a lot of sex going on in France. I should be there.
This is okay. Let me jump into Belle de Jour just a little bit. This is a Louis Buñuel film, and we should all hate Louis Buñuel anyway because the man just lived a fucking charmed life, directing his first film at like 24 with a fucking score from Miles Davis. Like, who does
Yeah,
that?
Elevator to the Gallows?
Elevator to Gallows.
I
This is
love
Louis
Elevator
Buñuel.
to the
Got to
Gallows.
make a movie with Salvador Dali.
Yeah, and here got to make a movie with Catherine Deneuve, who is one of the most beautiful women in the entire
yeah.
world, and not just any movie, but one where she's kind of kinky and has some strange fantasies going on, and then decides, you know what? Yeah, I'm married to this guy and I like him, but maybe I should go become a whore for a little bit.
I mean, we find out early on as she's having a fantasy right in the beginning of the film where she is being pulled aside and whipped by this just carriage driver for no apparent reason. When I was like, oh shit, it's going to be one of those movies. But thankfully, it's just a dream or fantasy.
Yeah.
I said that too, but then I looked down and I came, so
Oh,
I was
right.
like, oh.
But she's obviously got, like, she's bored by her marriage, so she ends up becoming a prostitute. Or a high-end prostitute, mind you.
Definitely, yeah. She's a call girl. for
Yeah,
sure.
and she gets involved with a gangster who gets obsessed with her, and from there it starts getting kind of weird.
And actually, the
From there.
the masochism is really interesting because her name, her character's name in the film is Severine, which is kind of an adaptation of Severin, who was the main character in Venus and Furs, which was the famous book by whose last name is Massock, which is where we actually get the term masochism, is from that book and from Severin's instincts. In that case, a submissive male towards a female. In this case, this is Catherine Deneuve dreaming of being whipped by men, but you know.
Okay, I quit.
It's an
This is
interesting-
now Luke's show.
No, this
I
is
quit. I can't compete with that.
this is the advantage of having a tech geek who's also a French major.
I do. I have a soft spot for French film, and I love French film, and frankly, I love sex. So there you go.
So you would say you were a big fan of this film in particular?
I like this film quite a bit. I really do.
I mean, it is considered to be a classic by many, even though the more I read about it, the more it was like, sure, we love this film. Well, can you explain what happened at the end? Oh, no.
Yeah, the end does kind of leave you with that, like, the fuck?
Quoi?
Yes, that very French term.
I don't know. I did really enjoy this. It's very beautifully shot. Catherine Deneuve is just
Definitely.
gorgeous. All the women in it are gorgeous. And it comes to a point at the end that's either going to really make you furious if you're expecting a traditional narrative on any level, or
Yeah,
you're going to
that's
look
true.
at it as the metaphor in which I assume he intended.
Yeah.
And which you can interpret in a number
Sure.
of different ways, apparently.
Or hopefully, you know, even if you don't like it, you can go, well, at least I like the rest of it.
And of course, it's Criterion, so it looks great. I mean,
It does. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, not to
And
suck
has a good-
Criterion's dick, but if they wanted me to, I totally would. I'm just
Well, I
throwing
mean,
it
it's
out
like
there.
if they had any history of failing at what they do, then maybe we wouldn't be so in love with them. But their winning streak is undeniable.
Yeah,
so,
is.
they
absolutely
rarely have a misstep. It does happen, but not barely ever.
but considering how
And
many movies they
usually-
put out every month,
Yeah.
you know,
And usually when they do misstep on something, it's because of, you know, not anything in their particular control.
And once again, of course, this comes with lots of good extra features, documentaries about this, discussing the sexual politics of it, which are complex to say the least. It's a film that would be actually an interesting film for a couple who are mature enough to handle
Sure.
what the themes it's dealing with, to watch and discuss it and maybe even learn something about themselves.
Definitely, because it also kind of mirrors, not entirely, but it at least thematically shares something with Ibsen's The Dollhouse, which is another famous, you know, story of a housewife that, you know, has these sexual fantasies and so on. And so
Where
forth.
are all these housewives, goddammit?
I know. I just need God,
Wisteria
Catherine
Lane?
Deneuve. Well, apparently Catherine Deneuve is in a brothel somewhere. But,
Yeah, well.
and I'm not sure about that one, but I know Criterion goes to the personal collection of Scorsese quite often. I know Scorsese did one of those like Scorsese Presents on one of the first DVD releases for Belle de Jour, so it's completely possible that they used one of his prints, as they often do.
Yeah.
Because Scorsese has a huge collection of 35 and is one of the few people that will collect nitrate prints, which a lot of the films from the 60s and 70s are on. And
Most people don't collect.
Most people don't collect them because, as the end of Inglourious Basterds showed us,
They're incredibly
very,
flammable.
very flammable. And in fact, I think there's only one projection house in New York that will even project nitrate.
Wow, really? I did not know that.
Because it is so flammable, and their insurance goes like through the roof if they're projecting any nitrate prints.
Well,
so.
thank goodness for him if that's the case, because then we're getting really, really great.
Yeah, we are, and that's
copies of
incredible.
all
But
these
that's just one of those things that just blows me away, because so many people have this image of Scorsese, and it's just fun. It's really interesting to me that more than anything, he is a film nut. Just like we are. Like, he is a nut for film, and that's great.
That is his whole thing, no question about. From beginning to end. I mean, look at Hugo, for Christ's
Sure.
sakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need to see an example of how
All the
much he
evidence you
loves
need
the
right there.
whole history of
From
film.
the director of The Departed, ladies and gentlemen.
He can do anything. Well,
So that was Belle de
That was
Jour.
Belle de Jour. Moving on is Age of Heroes. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the writer of James Bond's original novels, Ian Fleming, was in fact a spy himself.
That's where a lot of the ideas in those books come from.
Although, to be fair, he was really kind of a pencil pusher spy.
Right,
He was-
and it's not all based on fact, but there's some stuff I can't remember everything, but some of the stuff that you learn from the gadgets in the James Bond movies, like, oh my gosh, that's so silly.
Yeah.
And then you find out that it's based on something he actually saw and handled.
Yeah.
Like some actual gadget, and you're like, huh, okay, I will shut up now.
Well, he was one of the guys who sent teams out to do covert missions, and was kind of a manager, or I don't even know what the right
Hey,
term would
more of
be,
a Tinker Tailor
Yeah, more of a
situation.
Tinker
He was
Tailor
M
situation.
in the James Bond universe.
But there were people who were the more James Bond type guys who were being sent out to do crazy undercover shit. And in here, in fact, Ian Fleming is a character in here who sends out this team led by Sean Bean to go into occupied Norway during World War II and capture new radar technology from the Germans, which is, I believe, the Enigma machine is specifically what they were going after. I could be mistaken.
No, I think you're right. I think that's what it was.
And along the way is Corporal Rains, played by Danny Dyer, who's an actor who's very familiar to the British, I think, British audiences, but most Americans still aren't familiar with him. I'm actually a big fan of his.
Oh, yeah.
More and more of his stuff. I loved him in Doghouse.
Doghouse is
for example.
great.
Great little horror film. But Danny Dyer's character is kind of a fuck-up who's in a military prison, unjustly, mind you, but nonetheless, it's because he has a bad time bowing down to authority when it's being unjust. Same reason I never joined the military, because I would still be in military prison. Be like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's why you didn't join the army.
Well, that and I like cheese too much.
There you go.
Yeah.
In your van down by the
Down
river.
by the river. He ends up getting pulled out of prison by Sean Bean, who's actually there to get another guy who's his friend. He literally holds him at gunpoint, saying, "You're going to take me with you, or I'm going to shoot you." And he's like, "Huh." I respect that.
I wish I knew that worked on people.
Yeah, would that work? I'm gonna go get a
I've
job.
been trying it on liquor stores for years.
Most of this is really men on a mission film, like a Dirty Dozen type situation with this group of guys going into an impossible situation undercover, and it's really damn exciting. If there's a problem, it's just that the direction is kind of workmanlike.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean it's kind of a paint by numbers man on a mission movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But
Yeah. I mean,
you've seen it a lot.
It's a fun man on a mission film, but it's not one that's going to really stand out to you if you've seen a lot of these.
Plus, I'm pissed off that when they get to Norway, Sean Bean doesn't go, Winterfell.
There must always be a Stark there. That's
Indeed.
For sure. Anyway, so that was Age of Heroes.
One quick thing before we move on from Age of Heroes, and this has nothing to do with the film itself, but on this Blu-ray, there are several trailers that you can watch, and one trailer is for a film. And the reason I'm being vague is because I don't know what the title of the film is. I know you've seen this in trailers where you get a lot of scenes of action and then they cut to some background with text over it just kind of explaining like, they were young and in love.
Yeah.
Or shit like that. And then later on it'll give you the actors' names as it cuts between the words and the actor's face. And then at the end it drops the title card and you know what the movie is and then the credits, blah, blah, blah. This film kept cutting to a blank stone wall. And I was like, that's weird. Why do they keep doing that? And then, halfway through the trailer, I'm like, I haven't seen a single word on the screen. And then it dawned on me, They forgot to put the goddamn text on the goddamn text screen.
And now somebody is going to jump in and go, well, now I don't know that you're actually accurate about that. Let me just say that I watched this particular trailer, and he is completely accurate, and you know that he's accurate because they remembered one. At one point, they cut to that same wall, and the text says, a secret bomb.
Yeah, which is clearly a plot
So that's
point.
obviously where the text is supposed to
And
go.
that's not the name of the
clearly
movie.
Where the title is supposed to go.
Right.
The title even gets like those few extra seconds and kind of the slow fade out, and you know it's the goddamn title.
But
But
they
there's
don't
nothing
do
on the
that.
screen.
But there's nothing there. And in fact, I googled around. I looked on the distributor's webpage. I couldn't figure out what the fuck this movie
Wow.
is.
Well, you know what? As we were talking about when we were discussing this originally, it's that whoever is in charge of putting the trailers on Blu-rays has no fucking clue or just doesn't care what they're doing.
yeah, they're often in the wrong aspect ratio or in standard def.
Yeah.
Or just
Or
like one of them is in
substandard def.
Yeah, it's a strange world. Anyway, that's Age of Heroes, and it's
Something
fucked up
something
Blu-ray.
weird I found on that Blu-ray that I thought was interesting.
So moving on, this Essential Killing. Now this is a Polish political thriller film from 2010 with Vincent Gallo, who did not direct it, mind you, but he just starred in it.
I can't even imagine the scenario in which you go, you know who I want for my film? Vincent Gallo.
Well, I forget who it was. I watched the making of, and the director had said he just saw him in something else, and I'm blanking on what it was, and was like, that's the guy I want. But this film won the Grand Prix du Jury at the at Cannes Film Festival, which was like, how did I never even hear of this? And it's this would have been a good film to talk about when we did our Man versus Nature film. And it's an odd film to get behind because it starts off with Vincent Gallo, who's a Taliban soldier who, after killing a bunch of soldiers in the Middle East somewhere, I don't think it's ever specific about where it is, he's captured by the U.S. and is being tortured and brutalized, and he's being transported to Poland, and he manages to escape, but it's all fucking ice and snow everywhere, and he's just on foot. And it's a survival film following this bad guy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the nature of the film, it's not really about whether he's good or bad. It's just a human survival story.
Well, they do that thing too where they present him as being evil, quote unquote, in that he blows up not just a soldier, but these two guys who I can't really tell what they were obviously two like schmucky businessmen who were like being escorted by a soldier with a metal detector. Like, I have no idea why they were there, but it was clear that they weren't soldiers. So what we see is, in a great piece of practical effects, I must say, we see him blow up these three guys, one who's a soldier and two who are like maybe not innocent bystanders, but not military personnel.
Yeah.
So, but then when he's captured, we see all the torture and shit that America is putting their captives through, and it's like, it kind of balances the tables a little bit so that when he does escape, you really don't know how to feel about it. Because on the one hand, it's like, fuck this guy, but on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but we kind of fucked him too.
You can
so.
identify with the human instinct of wanting to survive no matter what, and it's about watching this guy turn into an animal, pretty much. I mean, there's a sequence in here that is a showstopper where he sees this pregnant woman on the side of the road all by herself nursing her baby, and he's starving, and so he grabs her and pulls out her boob and starts drinking milk from her tit.
Yeah,
and it's shocking, and she's freaking
Of
out.
course, Vincent Gallo said yes to this.
Yeah, it was probably the scene they let him read, and then he went, "Oh yeah, I'll do that."
But it's one of those things like it's not gratuitous in its use. It's
No,
really,
I just
it's
hate
that
Vincent
he's
Gallo.
sank
Yeah.
that far down.
No,
I will say this for the movie, Luke, and I'm totally with you. I fucking can't stand Vincent Gallo. I didn't know it was him until about 40 minutes in when I was looking up some information on it.
And it probably is a lot easier. It probably is a lot better in that he didn't like write and direct it. So it's not Buffalo
Yeah.
66.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he doesn't, it's believe me, it's not like his other films at all. It really
I hate
is not.
Buffalo 66.
I'm not a big
We
fan of
all
that either.
do.
I'm not a big fan of his career in general as well. Although I can't go so far as say I hate the guy, but he's not one of
Well,
my
not
favorites.
personally.
No.
Yeah.
His work.
Yeah, I really enjoy this. He doesn't even have any dialogue in it if I remember correctly.
I don't. That might be why I liked it so much, is because he doesn't speak at any point during the movie.
But anyway, yes, that is Essential Killing. I actually did really like this film.
It's a very interesting film, one that definitely deserves to be seen.
Yeah, especially like I said, if you're still in that like Man versus Nature thing, this
Mm-hmm.
is more the hardcore, dude. Just
This would be an interesting follow up to The Gray. Like if you go to the theater and you see The Gray, and you want to see a film that is not exactly like it, but has some of the same tonal qualities, I think Essential Killing would be an interesting compendium.
All right, that was a Tribeca release, which, by the way, for the record, Tribeca almost always just puts their stuff out on DVD. I don't know why. They barely ever, even though they put out lots of really neat indie films, I tend to like more of their stuff than I don't.
Yeah.
They never put on Blu-ray, and they never put subtitles, ever. What the fuck, Tribeca? You're supposed to be all arty and left, and you're not even going to have anything for the hearing impaired? Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
Or people who are just lazy and like subtitles like me.
Yeah, I was about to
there it
say,
is.
you
I'm like, none of us are
motherfucker.
deaf, but okay.
I'm a tiny bit deaf.
What?
Yeah, exactly. This one of the other titles is Beware the Gonzo. Now I was going to totally ignore this. This was going to go on my skip pile because it looked like some kind of high school comedy until I realized that the lead
Interesting
character
cast, though.
Ezra Miller is the guy from We Need to Talk About Kevin, who plays the totally bizarre and unforgettable psycho son in there, the bad seed. And here he's like the main geek. Really, he works for the school newspaper, but Jesse McCartney, who plays the jockey douchebag Gavin, who's the head of the school paper, he basically wants nothing to do with this nerd guy who's very all fire and old school journalism and like, no, we got to get to the truth. And Gavin just wants to write stories about all his friends and how awesome they are. The kid Eddie goes on Ezra Miller's character goes on to start his own newspaper and accompanying websites with several like-minded nerds that savages all the bad people in the school and champions the underdog, and everyone gets behind him, and you know we're talking about here, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You can kind of picture how this plays out. Surprisingly, it actually goes to a significantly darker place than these movies ever do. I mean, at one point, he gets beaten into hospitalization, you know, and loses everyone in his life. I mean, because he fucks up so bad that, like, you're like, wow, I would safely say probably none of these people would ever talk to you again after what you did. But it's kind of at that point of like, you know, Matt, sometimes being right isn't good enough. You know, you have to, there's boundaries, and anger can easily let you slide right past those boundaries. It's like, watch yourself or everyone's going to think you're a dick.
Right.
One other thing I've noticed here is Zoe Kravitz is in here playing the love interest, and she is the daughter of Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet, which is to say she's fucking hot as shit.
I was going to say, that's an interesting little baby batter they got going on there.
Yeah, exactly. Judah Friedlander is in a really weird little role here as the main cafeteria guy, and I feel like
Frank from 30 Rock, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a joke I'm missing with his character that I never quite.
Is it written on a trucker cap?
Yeah, right. It probably should have been. Anyway, that's Beware the Gonzo. It's worth a look, especially if you like those kind of films. And Ezra Miller is one of those actors who I think is really one of the ones to watch right now. Anyway, so it'll be a minor footnote in his career, but one that should be interesting when we see what he does in the near future.
Yeah.
Moving on, did you guys get a chance to watch any of Wings?
No.
Okay, the reason I watched this at all is because
it's the first Best Picture winner,
it was
right?
the first film ever to win Best Picture. Although I don't even think it was called Best Picture initially, but in retrospect, they went back and said, you know what, we're gonna just change that to, because that's what it is Best Picture. And it's Claire Bow, who is like, you know, considered to be one of the greatest of the early silent film actresses. And indeed, it's a silent film that with Gary Cooper, who has a very small role in it, by the way, about. Well, basically, it's just about pilots in the war who are really into flying. There's lots and lots of flying in this film. In fact, the director, William Wellman, was known for making lots of these because he himself was a pilot and totally loved to fly. But it's a comedy as well because Claire Bow is a character who's like kind of the nerdy, kind of weird girl who's desperately in love with the hero, but he actually wants to fall in love with, he's in love with the rich girl who is in love with a rich guy who's kind of his competitor, but as the war goes on, they become friends. And I don't know, it's kind of goofy and screwball, and it's got a lot of things that changed film in it. Like there's a lot of that's the first time anybody ever did that type of things in it, and certainly more so than The Birth of the Nation. It holds up still. I mean, you can say what you
Really?
want.
Why?
No, say what you want about that film. There's like 30 things in Birth of a Nation that are the first time anybody ever did it, and stuff that film has, you know, that we see all the time.
So
now.
tempted to make lynching jokes. Anyway,
well,
well, let me ask, because I'm noticing this film is almost 2.5 hours. Like,
it's
is it
long as fuck, and I did not finish it for that.
okay?
reason.
So
I mean, it's a silent film.
It feel because 2.5 hours of a silent film, like.
I mean, part of it, I just wasn't in the mood. I can watch silent films. I just really was not in the mood this day, and I got about 40 minutes into it. I was like, okay, I get the idea. I will go back and watch this all the way through at one point because I was enjoying enjoying it, and I was going, oh, look, that was neat how they did that. It's got strange special effects that are rather convincing, all things considered, for aerial combat stuff. It's like, wow, I wonder how they actually did a lot of this. But anyway, so that's Wings. It's actually a really nice edition of it that they put out. I mean, they spent a lot of money on fixing it up, it's clear.
So what you're saying is if our fans want to see a great silent film, they should go take this flying flick.
Yes.
Oh, yeah!
Or just see The Artist.
Or, God damn it. But there's no
Punishing.
pun in that.
I know, but it's the truth.
Where's the pun in that?
No,
Oh, yeah!
no, you can't pun the word pun. That's against the rules.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a new rule. I just made it because I am the king.
You're no pun.
See, that specifically is the joke that you're not allowed to make. Or punishment, that is
You're
out.
right.
That's
You're right. I
out.
understand.
Disallowed. God damn it.
So that was Wings.
I learned from the best, man. I'm your
Not to be
Padawan.
confused with the TV show of the same name.
Yeah. Tim Daly's not, or Tim whatever. Is it Tim Daly in Wings?
I only ever isn't.
I never have watched that show.
It's
Ever.
Tony Shalhoub.
It's
right?
like one of the longest
Tony
running
Shalhoub
sitcoms.
and
yeah, Tony Shalhoub and some guy who didn't go on to great things.
and the guy that played Sandman, whose name I'm blanking on.
Yeah.
Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Tom
Yeah,
Hayden
Thomas
Church
Hayden
was in
Church
that.
was-
Oh,
yeah.
But like I said, never watched it. Just saw
Oh,
the
dude, I thought
trailers.
Wings was. I liked Wings a lot.
A lot of people did.
I saw. It was one of those shows that I would watch reruns on USA when I was a
It
kid.
went on forever.
I think that show's hilarious. I like Wings.
Obviously,
a
a
lot.
lot of people did, or it wouldn't have lasted 8,000 seasons. So, which apparently it's still playing. I don't know. Somehow they're
Probably.
making it still. It's just no one knows.
Yeah, Tony Shalhoub is actually done with Monk and is making Wings again.
True story.
So this next film is Happy Happy, which is a 2010 Norwegian comedy that was their entry for Best Foreign Language Film, but it didn't make the final shortlist. Cute little film about a couple that are having marital problems, and they go and they sort of buy a house or rent a house, I suppose, out in the middle of fucking nowhere, but from another nice couple that live there in the house right next to it, and they form a weird, awkward, ungainly friendship because the new couple coming in are kind of more city oriented and the more intellectual, and the other couple's more country. But as it turns out along the way, there's a lot more problems going on than it appears on the surface, and shortly the woman in the couple that already lived there, who's the cover actress Agnes Kittleson, starts having an affair with the husband from the other couple. And it's one of those films, it's a movie that could have gone really dark or it could have gone uncomfortable, and it actually ends up being pretty light and funny all the way through.
Well, the tagline, if I'm reading my Norwegian correctly, is in komedie und oddskap ettertryk, blowjobs og cottage cheese.
Yes.
It actually, there's all
Yep,
this
those are the words on the
Norwegian
poster.
and then the word blowjobs, og cottage cheese. I love
Well,
that.
what do you think it looks like?
Well, blowjobs and cottage cheese, yeah.
That sounds like a great combination to me.
I'm in.
Somebody get me some cottage cheese.
Or a blowjob.
Oh, well.
Not
okay.
in the room.
I thought that was a given.
Someone else. Put it on
Cottage cheese is what happens after. I am down to watch this film.
put it on your wish list.
I will put one blowjob on my Amazon wish list.
Who sells that?
Rubio
Anyway, this is
and Dr. Geek Love or whoever the fuck that dude is.
Dr. Nerdlove.
Yeah.
God.
this is a minor comedy, but I do recommend it. It's one of those, if you tend to like these type of foreign comedies, sex comedy type things, then you'll like this. There's actually a good amount of nudity. There's a weird thing with where there's a singing subplot where they like to sing, and so the Greek chorus of the film is this group of 4 guys who sing barbershop quartet style various well-known musical hits, and the sequence dividers.
Seriously, this movie just keeps sounding better and better.
And I've never was entirely sure what the reasoning was, but it actually is one of those quirks that works.
Awesomeness.
Nice.
All right, so that was Happy Happy. Let's move on to one. I think, did you guys get to watch The Whistleblower?
Yes.
Yes.
See, I really like this film a lot.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Did you not like this movie?
No.
All right, well, let's get into it here. And by that I mean I'm going to punch you in the face. No, this is a Rachel Weisz movie. It's inspired by a real story of a woman, Catherine Bolkovac, who is a police officer from Lincoln, Nebraska, who basically accepts an offer to work with the UN International Police in post-war Bosnia for a U.S. company called Democris Security. And she ended up getting herself involved in first in the trial of a Muslim woman who was getting domestic abuse and no one seems to give a shit. She's just being beaten almost to death. And then from there gets involved with sex trafficking ring that seems obvious that all these people in this U.S. company are not only let happening, but are regular customers of.
And involved in the management of.
Yeah, involved in the management of. Now, as bizarre and like far-fetched as this may even seem if it was a horror movie, it's not. All this actually happened.
A little historical background for those who aren't familiar with the war in Bosnia. War sucks.
It does.
And human trafficking sucks worse.
It does. It's one
So
of the,
there's a little background for it.
it's human trafficking is
fuck.
kidnapping, rape, and murder all tied up in one.
It's
lovely
it's
little
making it's making a business, an ongoing business out of rape.
package. Yeah.
That's the worst part about it, is that it's abduction, it's rape, but then it's like the continuing enterprise of rape.
And unfortunately, there's a shit ton of money in it, which is why it's such a huge, widespread problem all over the world. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Brian and I didn't particularly care for this film, and it's because it is such a big problem that it deserves a better film.
Oh, see, I thought this film was great. I thought especially Rachel Weisz really sells this lead character and her coming to terms with the fact that things are actually this bad. I mean, she doesn't want to believe it herself, and I think she echoes most people who
And
are
I don't think
I
either one
don't
of us-
even want to imagine that this is really not only happening but fucking widespread. And watching her get to that point where she has to, she's going, it is worth putting my own life on the line,
Right.
to try and affect change.
And I don't
in the
think
situation.
Luke or I have a problem with her performance in the movie. My biggest problem, and I think Luke actually pointed, I was kind of grasping at it, but Luke really hit on it, is that there's no defined hierarchy in her organization, and that sounds like such a minor quibble, except we don't know what the stakes are. When she goes to this person XYZ and reports it, I don't know if that's like a mid-level person who might be on the take, or I don't know if she's actually making a difference, because at one point it really feels like she's about to blow the lid off of everything and she's sending it to the right people, and then she just gets fired. And it's so hard to trace who is in charge of what, because this organization is completely, it's scattered. Like there are people from all over the world. It's not really even a law enforcement agency. It's a peacekeeping agency, which means they don't do shit.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
literally...
the UN peacekeeping force really has no power whatsoever. They're not even allowed to carry guns in most countries, and it's such a strange thing that it's like that on top of the fact that there's an outside contractor running everything. It does sound like a petty concern, but it's kind of like doing a haunted house movie without running through the house first and establishing where all the rooms are.
See, I didn't have that problem because I thought that was the point exactly of the film, is to say, who the fuck are we supposed to blame for this? I mean, that was part of her travail.
Maybe, but the problem is she knows.
Yeah.
Her character knows who all these people are.
No, she knows who her immediate boss was. There's even a point in the film where it's clear that she didn't even know he was answering to somebody else that she knew. She didn't realize there was a connection between those two. I didn't have any problem following that trail myself. It wasn't heavily emphasized. Towards the end, it becomes a slightly bigger deal, but I didn't feel like...
I look at it this way. If you're watching Serpico, and you don't know exactly who his chief is or who the chief above him is, and you don't know which chief is on the take, and you don't, like, his deeds are just, it's kind of a guess at that point. It's like, I don't know if what he's doing is actually going to make a difference at this point, or if, and not because it's like, I don't know if this person's on the take, it's exciting. It's literally like, I don't know who he's reporting to.
Yeah, like,
I don't know if he's just yelling into the
know
dark.
who Vanessa Redgrave's character is.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
She's
how
just
she
this
fits
white-haired
in.
woman that Rachel Weisz talks to at some point, and she talks to some of the UN people, but you have no idea who she
Which,
works
again,
for,
you think is gonna get
or how
worked
she
out.
fits in.
Well, my point of what I saw on that was that she was an ambassador, and that her character was supposed to be the one that represented the UN, just not wanting to know this was happening because they would have it tied back to
But
them.
yet she's the
And
one that's
But
encouraging
you
her to
shouldn't,
report
you
it.
shouldn't have to try and fill that in on your own. Like, it should be very explicitly stated.
I thought the film was pretty clear. I mean, you didn't have to say precisely what her position was, but I thought
I
it was
see, I
clear
disagree. I
enough
feel like you
that
do
was-
have to
well,
say precisely what her
Yeah,
position is.
because to me,
didn't
not
bug
knowing
me.
the shit took all the stakes away.
It didn't-
Because I
Yeah,
was like,
in a movie that should have had a lot of tension, it didn't.
I
for me.
couldn't feel more opposite. I thought I was on the edge of my seat the whole time I saw this, but I think I can understand the point of view that you guys are coming across on that. I don't understand why that bothered you so much, but because it didn't bother me.
Well,
but
here's the thing. Work it backwards. It bothered us that there was no tension in the movie that should have had a lot of tension.
See, that's
and
what I
that's
don't
what we're pointing to as the reason.
That's what I don't understand, how why that made you feel that way.
because
it
who
didn't
cares
from
who she's
me.
talking to if you don't know how that person fits into the
Well,
world
because
of the
like I
movie?
said, that's part of the whole problem with her, is that she has no idea who to blame. And neither do you. Neither do we. We're supposed to be told, fuck, what are we supposed to do about it?
But
This problem.
and maybe that's part of it. That
That's what I got
maybe
from it.
part of it is that we didn't like that helplessness or whatever. But regardless,
Yeah, it worked for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's totally fine. I mean, obviously we're going to disagree about stuff. My problem is that it's not that I don't think that we didn't get who these people were necessarily, is that we didn't know how they fit into the organization, and not in such a way that it was like, it's because it's so corrupt. It's like, no, because they didn't bother really establishing the characters.
Yeah.
It's not because the system is so confusing that that's part of it. To me, like, that's the margin call argument, where it's like, well, that financial crisis is so confusing that that's just how it is. And it's like, yeah, but I'm the audience. Like,
Well,
I don't care if it's too complex for me. You need to make it digestible.
Well, because I think it's not that kind of film at all. It's the problem with those characters is it's a miasma of people. It's not. It would be pointless to point out.
Cyrus gets the award for biggest word.
It would be pointless to say, yeah, it's that character, because that kind of takes away from how big
right,
the
but
problem
what you're
is.
talking about is assigning blame. I'm
Yeah,
talking
we're
about
talking
just knowing
just
who these
establishing
fucking
up
people
front.
are.
This is her boss. This is that person's boss. This is.
I don't-
We're talking about an upfront establishment and not an in-game.
I think the idea was to say that the problem was across the board. So, I mean, it wasn't really important establishing each one of those separate characters. But that's me. Anyway, we don't have time
The
to
most important part of this
meditate on
film
it.
is that Benedict Cumberbatch can do an amazing American accent.
Yes, he really can.
He can do anything.
He really can. He may be Jesus.
He's so British.
He
doesn't
could not be
even know
more.
it.
Look at the man's
He's so
name.
British, he comes back through the other side and can play anything he wants.
Yeah.
He has experienced the fullness of all.
He's
Anyway,
so British,
so
he's
that's-
original colonial.
That's the whistleblower on which Cyrus is wrong.
And there you have it.
The beauty of the last
The
one.
nature of film criticism.
I would pull that back at you, but I don't see the point since everyone can tell that you're wrong. So we'll just let it go on that. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about boring French vampire movies.
Oh boy.
Now,
yeah.
maybe Luke disagrees because he likes French people so much.
No. I don't think you're gonna get much disagreement on this.
Okay,
I
it's-
mean,
I'm-
maybe a little bit more. I'm probably more predisposed to liking these films than you two are, but they're not. I don't think anybody's gonna say that they're great. These are to say what the fuck we're talking about. Kino Lorber recently started a new label called Redemption, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't have the disc in front of me. And the first 5, they released 5 titles right away, and they were 5 films from a filmmaker named Jean Rollin, who I hadn't been familiar with, but am now, who apparently likes him some vampires, and
titties.
also likes him some titties.
Wow.
Yeah,
And,
good God, man.
most of these films are from the 70s, and in a lot of ways, it kind of plays out like the French Jess Franco,
Yeah,
I
it is
guess,
very
only
French
with
Jess Franco.
with more vampire-ness, I guess, more of a vampire focus than
More of a vampricity, if you will.
more of a focus on vampires than Jess Franco had, but the same kind of like. These are dreamlike films, they're not
Lots of
so
big empty
concerned
houses,
with
lots
narrative.
of naked women walking around.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically, in a lot of ways, they're softcore films, but
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
In more ways than their horror, I would even go so far as to say.
See, and I think that's where the line will get drawn for a lot of people is whether you feel like these really are just pornographic or if there's something else going
Okay,
on
one
there.
of them is called what? The Nude Vampire. I mean, come on.
Not helping my case, I realize, but
the titles we're talking here are The Iron Rose, The Nude Vampire, Lips of Blood, Fascination, and The Shiver of the Vampires. Now, of these, I only managed to make it through 2. Okay, and that was a huge struggle. I saw The Shiver of the Vampires, which was one of his first films that was more widely known, because he had a lot of really tiny films. So reading about this, I'm like, oh, I guess this one looks like one of his big ones. Yeah, even his big ones are really tiny films. I mean, when most serious horror buffs I know have never heard of this fucking guy,
Yeah.
that should have told me something. His stuff, it's just long and drawn out and really I mean, god damn, you can only show titties, the same pair of titties, so many times before you're like, all right, I'm gonna need more than those titties.
the Cyrus's argument against marriage right there.
Here's the thing. These
It kinda
movies,
is.
these movies are not for casual horror fans, which I kind of feel like I am after seeing these movies.
I'm not even sure they're for horror fans.
Well, that's the thing, is they are for people that really, really, really love vampires. Like, people that see a box of Count Chocula and have to rub one out. Like, it's literally like you have to be head over heels in love with vampires because they're not going to give you much else. And they're ridiculously over-sexualized. I mean, they make Hammer films look like abstinence ads. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, every 5 seconds there's a new pair of tits. And it's never like... And it's usually like tits. Like, it's like, it just, like, they explode out of bodices. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and incredibly poor acting.
Incredibly poor acting because there's several actresses in these movies who are actual porn actresses.
Yeah.
That was a thing of his, was to use porn actresses in his movies.
Really, almost no budget at all to these. What gore there is laughable. I mean, that's a stuff horror movie fans are going to, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say safely that I think, I don't know, I personally feel that almost every horror movie fan I know, and I know obviously there are some exceptions, but everyone I know isn't going to care for these movies at all.
No, these definitely are niche films, but for the niche that exists for them, for the people that really dig on Jess Franco films, for the people that really, really dig on 70s films, for the people that find something to like in the drier Hammer titles, these are going to be right up your alley.
Like Lust for a Vampire and that kind of
Absolutely.
shit.
Yeah, and I think Jess Franco's a good... Like, if you're a big fan of Venus and Furs, I think at least you will enjoy Fascination, which is the most narratively structured of the movies. Which basically what I'm saying is it's almost a real movie. But basically Fascination is a very weird movie about a thief who is running from this group of villagers who for some reason he gets to this house and he goes inside and there are only 2 women in this house and he doesn't know who they are or where the rest of the people in the house are, and the people that are hunting this thief just wait outside for him to come out, which I never understand because as far as they know, there's 5 of them and 1 of him, so they just wait for him to come back. I don't know. But anyway.
What if he has a pointed stick?
He might have a pointed stick. Yeah, he doesn't have... Yeah, it's ridiculous. But basically, they tell him that they are preparing for this other group of women to come, and it just kind of slowly goes on with him diddling them a couple of times.
Of course.
And then finally, when these other women show up, they never say the word vampire in the film.
But they're vampires.
But they're a blood cult.
They're essentially vampires.
Yeah,
They got teeth. They got the teeth.
Yes.
They're vampires.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No, they are. They just don't use the word, which I thought was interesting. But basically what it is that they are they're keeping him there so he can be the sacrifice. And
if you don't know, you know that. Like, the minute they say there are people coming, you know shit's going down. Like,
Of course.
The one thing I will say for this movie is the blonde in it is ridiculously gorgeous. And she kind of looks like Julia Stiles.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever wanted to see Julia Stiles in, I don't know, an extended girl-on-girl scene, this is the movie for you.
There's a lot of gorgeous women in all these movies, and that's the one thing I will say. He knows how to pick them.
Yep.
There's some beautiful, beautiful women who take off their clothes constantly through these films. But once again, this was in the 70s when you couldn't just, click on the internet and say, I want to see super hot woman naked and rubbing their boobs against each other. And there it is, a click away.
That's a really long search criteria. You should narrow that shit down.
And yet you'll get 20,000 hits
This
that
is
match
true.
exactly that tag.
And there's one other thing I wanted to say really quickly is that in Fascination, and maybe I'm just insane, but there's a music cue that is the same as the music cue they use in The Princess Bride for the Cliffs of Insanity.
Exactly the same.
That's disturbing.
It really, I was like,
And
wait,
we
what?
Googled around a little bit and can't find any mention of it, but I
Can't find any connection between the two.
We should really just line them up or rip it off somehow or make some recording of it.
If we
and
can,
play
maybe
them back
we'll
to back.
we'll do an audio where you can hear them back to back because it really is identical. It's so bizarre.
Weird.
Yeah, it was really, really strange.
You think Rob Reiner's a secret fan or something?
I have to think that somebody involved in the movie, I think the name of the guy that did the music for Princess Bride was Mark Knopfler, who was actually the guy that founded the Dire Straits.
Right.
Ha! I get to drop some music knowledge. What now? So I don't know if he might be a fan. I have no idea.
Nice
or
that you're
maybe it's just coincidental, but
It could just be a coincidence.
nice
but-
that you're coming out as a Dire Straits fan, though.
Yeah,
That's
I am
interesting.
not. Oh well, I guess I'm not straight.
could have
for
stopped it coming out. Yeah. So anyway, those are the 5 genre-length films that Kino Lorber has just put out. They're clearly for a niche audience, but maybe you're that niche, and if so, you should definitely check them out because there's something there for you to enjoy.
Say for the record, the other one I saw was The Iron Rose, which is 2 hours of a guy and a girl trapped in a cemetery by nothing, mind you. They're just trapped because the movie
Tells them
tells them that they're trapped. And she starts losing her mind for no apparent reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like she'll one moment they're having sex and then suddenly she's screaming and there's no reason for anything that happens. There's only two characters. Oh, except for a point early on in the film where for no reason whatsoever a guy in a Count Dracula cape walks into the cemetery, and that's the only time we ever see that character.
Yeah,
or anything.
I made it
vampire.
exactly 20 minutes into that movie before I fell asleep.
Oh man, it's one of the most boring pieces of shit I've ever.
And it was in the
had.
middle of
But-
the fucking day.
If you like your women to scream after sex,
There you go.
There you go.
Or during is even better. All right, so let's talk about one that you passed on to me. I didn't actually get a copy of this one, but you did. It is The Woman. Now, this is by a guy a lot of people here in town like named Lucky McGee because he has
McKee.
worked. I'm sorry?
McKee.
McKee, you're correct. I'm sorry.
No.
Who is well known for working with Angela Bettis, who is an Austin actress. Have you guys met her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sweet girl.
Sweet. Couldn't be sweeter. And so
And very, very talented.
and very
Yeah,
talented.
absolutely.
Now, this is a sequel to a movie I absolutely despised called Offspring, that's based on a book by apparently popular horror author named Jack Ketchum. I'd never even heard of his stuff until I saw The Offspring.
He
but-
wrote
The Girl Next Door.
Was that the name of his book? The Girl Next Door? Because
think
there's been a
so,
couple of
yeah.
movies based on. There's The Girl Next Door and
The Girl
American
Next Door.
Crime,
Yeah.
and they're both based on his. I don't know what the name of his actual
His novel is The Girl Next Door.
It is, and that's not an easy movie to watch, but I feel like there's an important story to tell. Anyway,
Well,
but-
they've adapted quite a few of his things, but the only ones I had seen were.
They have, and they're all by a company called Modern Cine, and a producer named Andrew Van de Houten, who was here actually at Fantastic Fest and drank lots and lots of beer when The Girl Next Door played at Fantastic Fest.
Well, in the original The Offspring, it was about people encountering a completely wild, feral group of people who have had no contact with normal civilization and live like cannibalistic animals. And it plays out just like every other crazy cannibal family in the woods, except that they don't actually speak English. They're
Right.
cave people. There's not much else to say about it. That's what that is, and I absolutely fucking hated it. Now, I did not go into The Woman expecting to like it, finding out that, in fact, it was a sequel, despite the fact that Lucky McKee, at least arguably a better and more experienced director than the guy who did The Offspring, or just Offspring, because they don't do that terrible song. But here, it's about a successful lawyer living out in the country with his family, played by Sean Bridgers, who finds a woman, like I assume it's like the last leftover character from the previous movie. I don't know.
one
maybe-
would think.
Yeah, or like
I don't know.
from that
This is the
tribe.
first I've heard that it had any connection to Offspring, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
And he decides that he's going to chain her up in his basement and civilize her. And this is not a great idea.
Civilized.
Well,
meaning
yeah,
rape her.
civilized is definitely in quotes
Well,
because
that's what he's saying he wants to do.
Bridgers is clearly nuts pants. Like
Yeah.
this dude's batshit insane, and I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this film.
I didn't dig this film either, and I think part of my problem with it is that I completely get and respect what he's trying to say
Yeah.
about misogyny in horror films, but to me it just plays out like the most misogynistic horror film, and I got tired of fucking seeing it. I couldn't watch it anymore.
Here's the thing. I can't argue with that point of view. I really can't, because you're not wrong, per se. It's a wild misstep in trying to say something important about misogyny. And he is trying to do that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree for a minute. I don't feel for a minute that he felt like he was being sexist at all. He
no, he
thought he was
doesn't.
doing the opposite.
Right.
And I think that his goal is there. It's clear to see. I mean, it is arguably a pro-woman movie, but it's hard to believe that when this woman spends a lot of the movie naked and being raped,
Yeah.
chained to a wall. There's a lot of lurid shots just of her in general, despite the fact she's actually kind of hideous.
It's funny because Pollyanna McIntosh is actually a beautiful woman.
No, she is, but in the movie they've just
she was also here for Fantastic Fest with a movie called Sex and Death 101.
in the movie
several years back.
that's a great movie.
Yeah, it
I
is.
It
really
is,
like
yeah.
that. But
Pollyanna.
no, she is just hideous in the film.
True,
I mean,
yes.
she's a beast.
They've
She
slathered
absolutely
her
is.
in mud and filth.
You know, it's important to note that I think we can all agree that Lucky McKee is not a misogynist. And
No.
that he's
Yeah.
trying. He is definitely trying to make a movie that discusses that subject and comes out on the pro-woman side of it. We just take issue with the execution.
What about
is the only
it
thing.
wrong? Yeah, well, I mean,
And I didn't particularly care for it, but there is finally that scene where Angela Bettis just gets sick of it. Angela Bettis plays the Sean Bridgers' wife, who is just ridiculously oppressed. And
well, yeah, because as the film goes along, we find out that like if she even opens up her mouth, he'll punch her in the face.
yeah,
And it's just accepted. And part of my problem with the movie, and I kind of think now that I think about it, it might have something to do with what he was going for, but that guy's performance just feels so fake to me. It just feels like this cartoon
I agree.
of a crazy person. And I understand that if what he's trying to do is create a satire, that to a certain extent you can't have characters that are 100% believable because you're trying to, draw attention to it. But there's a fine line, I think. And that guy's performance to me just feels so forced and so fake that it makes me hate him more. And then he's doing all these things and it just
that are built to make you hate him.
yeah,
But
the
I
things that
think
you're
it's-
supposed to hate him for, and then the things that you're not particularly supposed to have an opinion about. I'm just like, fuck you.
It's just not a solid performance in what should be the key performance of the film.
Right.
I mean,
But it is important to know that it's a film. It's a film that is tonally all over the map, and maybe that is at least a little bit by design. But that's one of the things that bothered me about it the first time through was that to me it felt tonally uneven to the point of being unfocused.
It seemed like it turned on a dime.
It does feel that way, but I don't know. It's funny actually discussing it. I don't hate it as much as I did.
Yeah, I don't
know.
Well,
I guess I'm willing to give Lucky McKee a little more credit.
I don't
is
actually
all I'm saying.
hate this movie, and I'll be honest. I'm the guy who's not really a Lucky McKee fan. I've yet to see one of his films that I particularly liked. Even May, which everybody loves. I thought Bettis was great in it.
Yeah.
Didn't really care for the movie.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
on
Brian
myself.
doesn't particularly care for it either. I like it. I don't love it, but I think May is a really interesting
But
film.
May is important to bring up because if you want evidence that he's not a misogynist, May is pretty much
clear,
that evidence.
clear-cut evidence. Well, he does a lot of films with strong female characters,
Yeah.
and this is the case where it's
And
perhaps,
frankly, that should be praised in and of itself.
Yeah.
To have an indie horror director who is
a male indie horror director who
making a
has strong,
very clear decision to have strong female characters in his films is admirable.
and for the record, has traded off directing and starring roles with his star Angela Bettis, where Angela got to direct and he
Roman,
got to
right?
star.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Roman,
Yeah.
which are like, okay, that's kind of a neat thing to do.
Definitely, yeah.
With he works with her quite regularly, but I don't know. I didn't hate this film. I can't even go so far as to say I like it, but it did have me in its grips. Like I wasn't going to turn it off. And I'm watching it going, wow, where in the fuck is this going? And I got early on that he was trying to overlay this whole thing as just sort of a metaphor for the way women are treated by a patriarchal society, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't see that, then I don't know what movie you were watching. But you're right. It's too hard to watch at points.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculously gory at points, although thank God at times he does actually pull away. There's a sequence where her teeth are being removed with pliers, and thankfully he's smart enough to know we don't want to fucking see that. Please cut here.
You can understand how it broke someone's brain at Sundance.
Oh, that guy! I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's a guy at Sundance like demanding the name of the person who allowed it to play, and to their credit, the Sundance people are like, sir, no, we don't owe you that information. You bought a pass. If you're not happy with this movie, you can always go to the next one. Like, you're not gonna like every movie, and it's not our job to coddle you. And I was fucking impressed by those people because they're like, you're making a scene just to make a scene, and we're gonna have to ask you to leave. And I was just like, bravo, because the guy was being a huge douche.
Yeah, I've never understood the whole, like, I didn't like that movie, so I should get my money back mentality.
Oh, I mean, it's the same thing that happened.
Take a chance.
Exactly, the same thing happened at Red, White, and Blue screening, where that woman like waited patiently to do a question during Q&A just to berate the filmmakers, like, how dare you, blah blah. And
in
Tim,
fact-
Tim took the mic and told her to get the fuck out. It
yeah,
was
Tim
amazing.
kicked her out of the draft house.
Tim's like,
which I thought
nope,
was-
you're done, goodbye.
I'm actually a fan of that movie. I don't know how y'all felt about it.
I like Red,
I
White, and
really
Blue
liked
a
it
lot.
quite a bit.
Right.
I was surprised how much I liked Red, White,
Yeah.
and Blue.
No, I was one of those films no one I knew was talking about when I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's some minor DVD thing, but it was, has Austin people in it and stuff, and I was like, all right,
And they
well,
filmed
check it
it.
out. I couldn't tear my eyes away from it.
I just admired the fact that it was like, you don't have an actual question, you're just screaming at just to have a pulpit, and this is not what it's for, and he just kicked her right out. It was amazing.
Well, anyway, that was The Woman.
Woman.
And now we're going to talk about what's arguably the biggest, most popular release that came out this last 2-week period, which is, of course, Abduction. Now, here's where I'm going to gloat, because not only did I not see Abduction in the theater, because I was out of town, one of my rare times to be on vacation, but I chose not to ask for it on Blu-ray either. So I have not actually seen Taylor Lautner in Abduction, and from what I've heard from absolutely every human being on the planet is that I may be the only person left with a soul because of it.
Okay, first of all, fuck you. And secondly, fuck you, because this movie was awful, and I hated pretty much every second of it. And honestly, I will be completely honest, I hate with every fiber of my being the Twilight films. Hate them. And I think that Taylor Lautner is a deformed Eskimo butt baby that should never be allowed to be on screen, who has all the talent and charisma of Carpet Lint, and I cannot stand this kid. But that being said,
But
I
some
like
sexy Carpet Lint.
it's very sexy Carpet Lint. It's a very sexy llama that he looks like. But that being said, I was interested in the concept from the trailer. I wasn't interested in seeing him in the film, but I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. First of all, the thing you need to know about this movie, no one gets abducted in this film.
Oh, so the title means absolutely nothing.
The title is an out-and-out lie. What it is it's a story about this kid who figures out through this really contrived means that he might be this missing person that they've been looking for. He finds out on the internet. It's bullshit. But he finds out that he might be this missing person, starts digging into his past, finds out that his parents aren't his real parents because he asks and they say no, which I'm always like, well, what? Well, if the secret was that tenuous that the minute he asks you give it up, like
It's like Santa Claus.
yeah, it's like
Once
no,
you
we're not
say-
your real parents.
yeah.
Of course not. Look, we don't look like Eskimo butt babies. So
Which
No,
was
his parents are played by Jason Isaacs and Maria Bello, who are amazingly attractive people, so he
Yeah.
should have gotten the hint early on.
But anyway, so it turns out he starts looking into it, and there's this whole thing in his past. His real mom was killed. He doesn't know where his real dad is, but his mom was killed, and these people took him in for protection because there were people out to get him.
Not an abduction.
Not a fucking abduction. And in fact, his real father is the one that basically gave him to these people to protect.
Not an abduction.
Not a fucking abduction.
Yeah.
You know what did get abducted, though? Any last remnant of dignity for John Singleton,
Oh,
no.
yeah. It is the action
who has
sequences.
made some great films.
Yeah. The action sequences are lazy. I'm
This
sorry.
is not one of them.
I hate saying that because that's usually the one thing I can point out in any film like this and go, well, at least I had good action.
Yeah.
The action sequences are lazy. The characters and the story are completely like contrived from A to Z, and it's really just a vehicle to show off more Taylor Lautner
Right.
without any further thought of it. It is easily one of the worst movies of this type that I think I've ever seen.
Poor Taylor Lautner. If he had been born in the silent film career, he would have actually probably had a pretty good career.
And if he and his father weren't the biggest douchebags in Hollywood,
Right.
this
But-
may be the movie that finally kills his career.
Oh.
He's already lost 2 projects because of it.
It'd
so.
be nice if it did, because I think he can't act, period.
He
And-
can't.
And he doesn't have the voice for acting.
He's more interesting as a CG Timberwolf
Yeah.
than he is as a human being.
Yeah.
Which really Minnesota needs right now. 'Cause
Yeah.
their front line.
But I'm
is-
still laughing about the title. I mean, they could have called it Eskimo Butt Babies, and it would have made as much sense. is what you're
Totally.
saying.
And I honestly think, the people have made this joke, but I honestly think they called it that so that there was a psychological connection in the Twi moms between the word ab and seeing Taylor Lautner in this film. I shit you not, I think that's legitimately why it's called that. Because you explain to me why this movie is called Abduction if there's no abduction going on, if it's not that.
They're abducting an audience to sit
They're,
there for
they're
2
abducting
hours.
money from your fucking wallet.
Wow, that bad, huh?
It is terrible. I can't. I hated this movie.
I'm so sad I didn't get to see
And there
it.
are people in this movie that I like. Alfred Molina's in it. Jason Isaacs is great. Sigourney Weaver exists in the movie. And
Dermot Mulroney.
Dermot Mulroney pops up for a while, and there are people in it I really like.
But-
So I was willing to be like, you know what, I can ignore him and just focus on the.
Look,
But nobody does a good job.
It's
in this
Hollywood,
movie.
and ultimately it turns out to be about a check sometimes and what you can do between other projects that you take more seriously.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, great actors end up in total pieces of shit.
And they may as
So-
well have sent you a telegram letting you know what every twist in the movie was going to be, because it was so so fucking telegraphed.
All right. Well,
So Abduction sucked ass.
yeah.
Abduction is not worth your time.
Let's move on before I'm feeling a little nauseous just thinking about these kind of movies even getting made. When it gets
Yeah.
that bad that is nothing but a vehicle for the abs of its star,
Yeah.
forget about it.
And I'm sorry if there are any Twilight fans who are Spilios. I am really sorry that you're so fucking stupid. But
Jesus.
and you're gonna hate me forever. But then again, you probably don't listen to this show because you already know what movies you're gonna watch, and they're all called Twilight. So
All right, so let's move on to our last title, which is a film.
I kind of like Twilight.
shut up, Luke.
You know what? I've had a fun time in the theater in every single one of those because we just said fuck it. I know normally we're super polite to everyone around us in the audience, but come on, Twilight, and we just sit there giggling like schoolgirls making fun of everything.
I do kind of want to see the. I do kind of want to see the next one with Corey because I've heard his reactions are pretty epic.
Oh my god, so funny, especially the second one. That was the one that we all just said fuck it. That even the Twilight fans in the audience who'd come there all excited were laughing at our jokes that we couldn't help but like saying a little too loud. You know, I don't advise anyone else to do that. It's just rude.
If you do it at the Alamo, we will kick you
God
out.
damn
but-
it. All right. So anyway, the last movie is one I've seen as well. I assume you both saw Real Steel, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now this is a movie.
Ostensibly.
Yeah. Now it's all right.
I'll
So
agree with that much.
when you compare it to Abduction, it's practically a masterpiece. But
there are pieces of real steel in the movie, so it already has one in the win column.
Yeah.
see, I feel weird because I feel like I want to argue about this with you guys because even though I didn't really like this movie, I didn't really hate it. I was like, it was all right. And I won't even remember it in a year, you know. But
That's probably true.
I wasn't angry at it. It didn't upset me.
I mean-
it's the worst quality about it. Is
Here's my biggest problem with the movie, in terms of why it upset me, is because it's a movie about boxing robots, and Brian is watching it. You don't have to do a lot to make Brian like a movie about boxing robots.
Right.
And yet they found a way to kill that for me in making Hugh Jackman's character so unlikable.
and that's
And I understand
Completely
that.
through the entire film. In
And-
fact, we checked the timestamp because this movie is way longer than it needs to be. It's like 2.5
It's
fucking
ridiculous.
hours.
it's way long.
And
yeah.
it's like an hour and 40 minutes in before Hugh Jackman does anything at all that can be considered remotely decent.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's right from the beginning, even though it looks like it's maybe 10 years from now in technology that they show you.
Sure.
Like everything else looks just like now.
Yeah.
Except for they have iPads that can control robots.
Yeah,
Yep.
except that they have iPads that control giant boxing robots. Apparently,
With
robots
Siri.
in the context have been around long enough that now, like, basically guys who normally just are truckers and in that level of budget
Yeah.
can afford their own giant boxing robots to
Yeah.
go and fight in competitions, of which Hugh Jackman is one, and he's not very good at doing it.
He's so bad at it.
Like so shit. The kid is clearly the better fighter. Like
Here's the thing. It is one thing that he's morally reprehensible. It is quite another thing that he's bad at what he does.
Yeah.
Because there's like literally a fight where he's winning a fight, and because he can't keep his goddamn eyes on his one money-making endeavor, he's like looking at girls in the stands and, his robot gets fucked up, and then he owes a bunch of money. I'm like, I wonder if you just kept your goddamn eyes on your meal ticket, since you're a money-grubbing bastard, which is
Yeah.
established by the fact that he sells his kid.
Well,
we'll
Sorry,
get to that in a
sorry,
moment.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
But yeah, he's made like an extra $10,000. This is the very first fucking scene in the movie. He's made an extra $10,000 bet that he knows he shouldn't have done, and he gets so cocky that he's making googly eyes to this girl in the stands and gets
when he's
his
supposed
ass
to be
handed to him.
manually controlling a boxing
Yes,
robot.
keep
Yeah,
that in mind.
so like, how much easier could this have been?
Yeah. Versus a bull, mind you. Not even
Yeah, not
versus
even
another
another
robot. Something that should be a cakewalk.
Which
but, yeah.
I took offense to. It was like, really? Robot is fighting a goddamn bull. Like, it's not bad enough that humans stab bulls and then expect them to like put up any
At
kind
least
of
it
a
wasn't
fight.
a dog.
I can't
Yeah.
defend any of the story aspects of this film, and I'm not going to try to, because you're right. He's totally reprehensible. There's nothing to like about him, and when the film suddenly decides you're supposed to start liking him, there's no reason to it.
It's too
It's
little, too
only
late.
musical cues that
Yeah,
indicate
but
that
but
things
that's the
have
whole
changed.
thing. Like, you know from the get-go where this story is going. Like, you've
Yeah.
seen the story a million times. You know it's the kid he didn't want, and you know that by the end of the movie that he and the kid are going to love each other. The problem with that is what Brian has already said. He starts the film by literally selling his child. And I'm sorry,
How do you
I
win
don't
an-
give a shit what you do in the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
If you've already sold your child, literally sold your child. I wish I was making this up.
Yeah.
I can't say it enough. We just talked about the whistleblower. The man sold his child. And then 2 hours later, you're going to tell me they love each other?
But to be fair,
fuck you.
he sold it to a really rich guy who wanted him as his own
Yeah,
son.
great. He
not
sold it to
into
Daddy
rape-
Warbucks.
Not into rape slavery.
I don't care if he sold it to Daddy Warbucks. It's still human trafficking.
I'm sorry, but you don't get to pull that 2 hours
Right.
later.
No,
Well,
no,
here's-
no. I agree with you. Totally reprehensible. There's almost nothing to like about this guy. There is nothing to like about this guy. But yet, watching this movie, and as you said, robots boxing, not hard to win. That part won me over anyway. I was able to forget about all the fucking terrible, like, just so badly handled, just ridiculously ham-handedly story aspects and character arcs in the thing, and just enjoy the sequences that were about watching these robots fight each other. Because I thought, special effects wise, and even just the way it was choreographed for the fights, was really fun to watch.
It should be noted, and Brian and I did talk about this, the special effects in this are some of the best I've seen in anything in a long
The CG
time.
looks really, really
The CG
good.
is seamless in this film.
Absolutely, and like I said, that was
At a
the thing.
level that really we haven't seen in a good long time.
It was one of those things where I go, this is the very definition of a B movie that I like. There's so many terrible things about it, yet it has
I don't know if you can call a
aspects to it.
$110 million movie a B movie.
I think there's lots of movies that
It
cost a lot
has-
of budget that are still B movies.
Conceptually,
It's a B movie.
Yeah.
But it deserves to be noted that it's based on a fucking Masterson story.
An amazing
Matheson.
story.
Matheson
yeah.
story.
Yeah, Richard
That was
Matheson,
filmed originally as a Twilight Zone episode.
who did some of the best damn episodes of The Twilight Zone, who also wrote
I Am
Duel.
Legend.
He wrote I Am Legend. He also wrote Duel, which is one of my favorite horror movies, about a truck driver that's chasing a guy across America. But getting back to Real Steel, when we say he sold his child, literally what happens is that the kid's mom dies, and the aunt wants to take custody from him, and he doesn't want the kid. He makes that abundantly clear.
Yeah.
But then he realizes that the aunt is married to this really rich guy, and is like, yeah, I'll give you custody for $75,000 or $250,000.
$100,000.
$100,000. And so he's literally like selling custody of his child to somebody else. And they're like, okay, but we're going to Europe and we want you to spend the summer with him. And he's like, fine. Well, then you'll pay me half now and half at the end of the summer. So literally, the kid is just with him until he gets the rest of the check. Like, it
And the
couldn't
kid
be-
knows.
And the
That's
kid
the other
knows
thing.
it.
The kid knows that he's been sold.
And the other thing that bothered me about the movie is that there's this story element that they introduce that they never fucking do anything with. That this robot that they dig out of the trash, basically a sparring bot. It's like the underdog, except it's an underbot. They dig him out of the trash and they flirt with the idea that it's a sentient robot.
Yeah,
That it
they do.
operates without control.
But they flirt with it in a way that's irritating to you as an audience member
Because they don't do anything with it.
Well, they never. If you want to go, yes, it has a level of sentience and go there. Okay, if you sell it convincingly, I'm willing to go with you on that. But don't sit there and fucking like cock tease me for the whole movie that this is it. When the truth is, you just had so little going on in the emotional depth of your story that you had to make up like camera tricks and musical cues to make you feel as if maybe the robot had some emotion.
Because then you're thinking that if you think that the robot is quote unquote human like, then the stakes for these fights are higher because it's not just about pieces of machinery getting. It's such a cheap fucking trick. And especially at the end, it's like there is a clear cut moment where if they actually wanted to go that route, they have the opportunity to really commit to the fact that the robot is sentient, and they just don't.
Right.
Like the robot is getting beat, and it's like, oh no, he can't see me. So it's just taking a beating because it can't see Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And it's like, if the robot was actually sentient, he would have gotten up and beaten the crap out of the other robot without Hugh Jackman doing anything, and that would have been a really cool moment.
Unless he was one of those, why can't we all just get along robots? You
That's
never
true.
know. Could have turned around like that. So
Yeah.
why you want to tell this robot how to live his life?
It's nonsensical. The plot does all kinds of things that don't make any goddamn sense. Trying to pull logic out of this is like trying to pull a hair out of a bull's ass. I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
Something equally pointless.
Yeah, and like we said, Hugh Jackman is completely unlikable. I honestly don't see what people see in this movie.
And I couldn't understand a lot of people I know who did like it. I was like, really? I don't. I mean, like I said, I don't even really like this film, but there are aspects to it that I felt made it worth watching. Like I said, the special effects are so impressive, and those fighting scenes are so well done, with the exception of the fact that, all right, so we mentioned early on how he looks away at the girl and that screws up his fight. Well, that happens all through the movie.
Yeah.
Like even when the kid is controlling the robot, they'll stop mid-fight and have a fucking conversation.
Oh, they argue all the goddamn time.
And it's like, well, you pay attention to the fight.
And anybody that's paying any attention knows that the kid is the only one that has any idea what he's doing. And anytime Jackman
so much
speaks
smarter.
up, he gives him like the worst advice known to man.
Yeah. Well, I would like my own giant boxing robot, and I suppose on
We
some
all-
level,
we
This
all would.
that
is
was
the definitive argument in favor of fan edits, because if you just take all the bullshit human stuff out of this and just make it like 20 minutes of robots boxing,
I'd
I
be
will
in.
watch and love this
You know,
movie.
If someone would re-edit it and just take out Hugh Jackman and put in, like, I don't know, Jimmy Stewart from some old movies in it instead.
Definitely.
We're gonna go box another robot.
I mean, that movie I want to see.
I think it might be sentient. We'll name it Harvey. It'll be amazing. I would
maybe,
watch that.
maybe in that movie, Evangeline Lilly could get naked.
Yeah, in that
I'm-
movie she gets
Oh,
naked.
yeah, I'm with you.
Because it's my edit, goddammit!
Why in the fuck would she even have sex with Hugh Jackman in this movie in the
Who
first
knows?
place? I don't even get that.
Why would
at all.
anyone?
Yeah. I don't know. Why would we even want to keep talking about this?
I'm
when
done.
That's the end.
So that's
of this
Real Steel
episode of
ladies
Remote
and gentlemen.
Viewing.
Oh, is that the end of the episode?
That's the end of the episode.
Man, we end on a
Maybe
swing
we
and
should
a
keep
miss.
talking.
Well, we have one.
The one thing I
more
will
thing.
say, because I know what the argument's going to be, I know what people are going to say, which is, what did you expect from a movie about giant robot boxers? And I'm like, better.
a little bit more.
But yeah, no,
It's based
that's
on
the thing.
Richard Matheson 1. It had a huge budget, too. It had actors who should be better at what they do. Like, I just think the whole thing's lazy from start to finish. So
It is.
I just expected people to do their jobs competently. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's too much to
I
ask.
had people in our initial review giving me shit because, like, but you don't like any of the Transformers films. That's because I don't particularly enjoy the action in the Transformers films. I went, okay, it looks real, but I still can't tell what the fuck is going on half the time, or who's fighting who, or what's going. You know, I have no idea. It's very clear what's happening.
It's like watching people fight at the UN Security Commission. I don't know who anyone is or who they report to. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, that
Now you
is
stop.
the default argument. Like, if you don't like this movie, you wouldn't like any B movie or something. And it's clear that we all like.
You cannot say that
shitty
shit to me.
movies.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
We just had
Nobody
a
gets to say
conversation
that
where
shit to me.
where Cyrus and I admitted to enjoying the Twilight films to some degree. Like, clearly we are not asking
Oh
for
my
a
god!
lot.
And
then
not-
I'm going to hear about that for a month now. I admitted when we talked about how I actually enjoyed the Sex and the City TV show and not the movie.
Love the Sex.
There's some guy's been stalking me on the site ever since then. Now going, oh, how the fuck can you tell?
Clearly he
when
doesn't know how the
seriously
band hammer works.
doesn't know how to talk about it. How can you believe him on anything when he likes the fucking Sex and the City? Come on,
That
man.
show's good.
You're
Like,
a
I'm
fu-
sorry.
Fucking
Didn't,
idiot.
didn't you admit it on here? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like the three of us admitted
It was
it.
yeah, we all
because
yeah.
We all like it.
But
Get
you
over
wanted to come
yourself and
on.
actually
Yeah.
watch an episode instead of criticizing somebody because they're a man and they like Sex in the City.
I've never actually
Grow
watched
the fuck
it,
up.
but I don't need to. Yeah, whatever, man.
I'm sorry.
No,
this-
you don't. Look, no, you don't need to. And if you've already got that attitude,
then you'll hate it.
watching an episode is not going to
That's
change your
gonna
mind.
change anything.
But for those of you who may be on the fence about it, it's a really fucking good show,
It was
and
pretty
I have
goddamn
no
entertaining.
shame in saying.
Well,
that.
I blame
and I will say this: it's better than Real Steel.
I blame
It
Real
is.
Steel, and I'm sorry that I got so punchy at the end of the show. Wow. Yes, crickets. In fact.
Wow.
Well, if you could see, viewers, you would see I am staring daggers at him. All right, so we got one last giveaway, and
Giveaway!
why don't you talk
Giveaway!
about this one, Brian?
This is something I'm actually really excited that we got a giveaway copy of, and it's a really cool release from a company called Raro Video. They've taken 4 old school Italian crime movies, and I'm not talking about The Godfather. I'm talking about like movies that thought they were The Godfather but made for about 1/8 of the budget in Italy. They are 4 police dramas by a director named Fernando De Leo, and the set includes. Oh my goodness, I had my notes right here. With
Caliber 9,
Caliber 9.
the Italian Connection.
Uh-huh.
The
Not to
Ball-
be confused with the French Connection.
No,
Right.
the unless it's Belle de Jour and you're just an Italian looking for pussy in France, like
What?
The Boss
Mm-hmm.
and Rulers of the City.
Yes, and these films may be very low budget, but they are also a lot of fun. They're very violent. They feature people you know, like Henry Silva. One of them has Jack Palance. They're people that you'll recognize, and they were a huge influence on Quentin Tarantino's crime films.
Oh, okay.
And these are really good transfers.
Never mind, we're not giving this away.
they're really good transfers, and like I said, it's the movies that they're not always technically proficient necessarily.
These aren't great films, but they're highly enjoyable.
These are the kind of B movies that you like to watch because they are about over the top characters and they are about really ridiculously violent crime stories but my thing is I love Italian B movies of all genres because I feel like the Italians for a time were making the absolute best B movies. And I feel like these are 4 really great examples of one of their subgenres, which was this weird kind of celebration of, at the same time, condemnation of crime movies. And there's some great stunt work. There's a lot of stuff in there to enjoy. I really think you guys will dig it. Again, that's by a company called Railroad Video. The Fernando DeLeo collection on Blu-ray, including 4 films: Caliber 9, Boss of the City, or Caliber 9, The Boss, Italian Connection, and Rulers of the City.
All right, and so I will be posting at some point on here, Fernando. And when you see that, you know it's time to post me with where you saw it, where you saw me post it, what the name of this collection is, and
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
the code word, which is
macaroni.
macaroni.
Because there was a time when all Italian knockoffs of popular American films were given pasta.
Spaghetti Western.
Yeah, Spaghetti Western, Macaroni Crime, or Macaroni Combat was like the Italian ripoffs of all the American war films.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was just something like, because it came from Italy, it was like that's what we would call them, is Spaghetti Western, Macaroni Combat. It's, yeah.
Lasagna porn.
Lasagna porn.
Dude, lasagna porn is the best.
I can't tell if I'm hungry or horny.
It's
Both.
much smarter than American porn because it's layered.
Oh!
And there is
And
a
that's
lot of
where we're
meat.
going to leave you this week.
I think that's a good call. So anyway, thanks for joining us on remote viewing. Make sure to keep your eye out over the next 2 weeks for all the giveaways, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode and much more stuff to give away.
Don't change that dial.
Is that our tag?
I'm
phrase?
trying out different things just to see what fits. So this week it's don't change that dial.
Okay.
Good night, New York, and may your dreams have wings.
And be lit with tomorrows, which are lit with dreams also.
Sure.
Sure.
Why not?
That's how Brian's sign-offs are going to go from now on as we try out new ones. I'm just going to go with good night and good luck.
Fine. Good night and good luck.